Alright, welcome back to another video. I hope you're doing well. Today I wanted to talk about a topic that has been on my mind for the past weeks and months. Keep thinking. So I was really wondering what your opinion is on some of those topics. What I want to talk about today is, do artisanal brands have a place in today's fast fashion world? Right? Not only in the fast fashion world, but in the fashion world in general. Can they survive? Now this topic obviously has a couple of buckets of questions, I would say. Maybe let's start off with the definition, like what is an artisanal brand? Like we all know them, we all love them, but I would say there are different levels of artisanal brands. So on the one hand side, you have brands that make really everything by hand. Then at the other end of the spectrum, you have brands that call their stuff handmade, which is a term that I absolutely hate, because those brands on this end of the spectrum, they, let's say, make a blazer and then they just stitch the button, for example, by hand, and they call it handmade. Is it technically handmade? Up for debate, but it really hurts the brands on this end of the spectrum, right? Because they're making everything by hand, but to the consumer, everything is marketed as handmade, right? And then obviously there are brands in between the spectrum here. I mainly wanted to focus on this end of the spectrum, like people who really make their stuff by hand. As you might know, I have a brand called Skinosh where I handcraft bags, belts, all kinds of leather goods entirely by hand. So not even a sewing machine, like everything is sewn by hand. For the past months when I was making orders like crazy, I was really thinking about, okay, how can you scale that even? Like that is not possible, right? Because if it takes a week to make a bag, you have one bag at the end of the week. It's impossible to scale with one person and doing everything by hand. So that is point number one, which is the amount of products that you can make in a month, in a year. Is that even sustainable for you as a business? That is question number one. Now that obviously depends on a couple of factors, right? One is price. If I sell one bag a month and it costs 10K, then it works for me, right? But does it work for the consumer? No, it doesn't. You have to find a fine line, like how many products can you make and sell per month, and how do you price it? For me, for example, right, when I started Skinosh, I wanted my products to be in stores, right, as every brand wants. But then I quickly realized, okay, it doesn't make sense financially because the markups of the stores are pretty high. I have to earn money. And then at the end of the day, the consumer has to pay 3 times the amount that the product is actually worth, right? So I quickly realized that doesn't make any sense. So I should probably sell direct to consumer, which is a model that I have. On skinosh.com, you have an online shop, you can buy directly. But a lot of the other brands, like they're starting out, they want to be in stores. And I understand it makes sense. To me, that would be a marketing channel basically, and a chance for consumers to touch the product, to feel the quality, etc., the details, all that stuff, which obviously you don't have in a digital world, right? But that is a challenge that artisanal brands are facing, right? Production cost, production time, pricing, markup, right? How do you find the right balance? You want to be in stores because it's beneficial for you as a business, but financially, it can be difficult for a hardcore artisanal brand, right? If you have a semi-automated process, I would say, it becomes more easy if you go to that end of the spectrum. What ways do you have as an artisanal brand then to scale the business, right? First of all, production-wise, you can outsource, which can be tricky, right? You have to find the right factory, otherwise you will probably lose quality, but it can be really, really tricky. Another option that you have is hire people. Then obviously you still have the risk of a dip in quality, but you can oversee it, you can teach them, etc. Obviously it comes with high financial investment, you have to pay their bills, you have to pay insurance, all that kind of stuff, but then you can still have a dip in quality. If you, for example, look at Greg Lauren, no offense, not sure if that is true, but just my point of view, right? I know they started off as a pretty small business, like had a couple of people sewing everything not by hand, but with machines, but still by hand. So it is handmade. And then they scaled up a bit. They have a big studio now. And just from my perspective, the quality is not as great as it was a couple of years ago. Might not be due to the people working there, could be other things. I know the fabric is not as good, but yeah, that's just something I've noticed and just comes to my mind all the time when I'm thinking about like that concept or that problem. And then if you look at Carol, for example, to my knowledge, she does everything in-house in a studio in Milan, hired a bunch of skilled craftsmen, and the quality has been steady. might even have increased over the years. So obviously, if you have a strong brand, if you have the resources, you can find talent, invest a lot, and then keep the production level high, the quality high, while scaling, right? So when you talk about pricing, I quickly wanted to show you an example, right? So here we have a Culata wallet that has 8 slots for cards and then 2 slots for bills, etc. So this costs 420 euros, I believe, on skinnosh.com. I don't know, let me know if that is a lot of money for a wallet or it is not, because I would be really interested in knowing your opinion. Quick backstory on that is a friend of mine came to the studio. He has nothing to do with fashion. And he looked at the wallet and said, wow, that's a really nice wallet. How much is it? And I said, 420. And he said, wow, there are people out there who pay 420 euros for a wallet. But he really liked it, so I offered him to make it together. So we sat down, we made it together, and after we were finished, he said, wow, you only charge 420 euros for that wallet? That is insane, it should be double that. Right, this takes about 4 to 5 days, I would say, to make. Along the edges is like a 2-day process. Right, you have beautifully finished edges. This is a different version of the wallet, and here you see shiny edges. So the edges take about 2 days to make. And it is a detail that can't be replicated with machines, right? So it is a handmade detail. And that's one of the reasons why this wallet takes so long, because of that detail. I could just leave a raw edge and it would be a 2-day process. But I'm really looking for those details, and only people who are really having artisanal brands who are making stuff by hand can finish those details on that level. So at the end of the day, selling this wallet for 420 euros is a bad deal for me, a really bad deal, because my hourly wage is pretty low. Then you have to factor in shipping, paying for all this stuff and all that kind of stuff, right? So it is difficult from a pricing perspective for an artisanal brand, because obviously you buy less materials, you only have a certain amount of time to make everything by yourself, you can only ship a certain amount of products per month. So your price has to reflect that, right? But, and this is the problem in my opinion, the consumer doesn't know this, right? They don't care. They see, okay, I can buy a Rig wallet for, I don't know, 600-700, or I can buy a Skinnosh wallet for 400. Rig is a known brand, Skinnosh not so much, but they don't understand like the perspective from the brand, right? The maker. They might not even care for the details, right? Leather quality is better, edge finishing, stitching is stronger, all that kind of stuff. They might not care, they might not know, right? And that brings me to my next point for artisanal brands. The challenge is, how do you communicate your USP as a brand, right? Because you don't have the strong brand name as a Rig, for example, but your craftsmanship might be better. How do you communicate that? Now, let's look at all that from a consumer perspective. And that is my question to you. Do you care that one person makes your product by hand and knows every millimeter of every detail? I remember, here the stitching was a bit difficult, so I did this trick, etc. So I love having like the relationship with every millimeter of the products. But do you care as a consumer as well, or do you just want a dope wallet? Would be really interesting to know. I, for example, when I look at it from my consumer perspective, I care a lot that somebody focuses on your product, dedicates time to that, and it gives sort of a personal relationship to the maker, if that makes any sense. But others might not care, I don't even know. And so I'm wondering how other artisanal brands are making it happen. Obviously, define artisanal, right? We're back to that. But I know, for example, a lot of fashion brands, they just outsource production from day one, which can make a lot of sense. I wanted to do it by myself, and I think it is the right decision, but it can be tricky. And if you think about like how many true artisanal brands do we have, right? We have a handful of shoemakers, clothing, accessories. Let me know there in the comments what brands you think are truly artisanal, like making everything by hand. But it is definitely a small list. And there is a reason for that, right? Because it is difficult to maintain that business as an artisan. So I just wanted to bring that topic up. As you have seen, there was not a lot of structure in my talking. Sorry for that. I was just freestyling and I had so many thoughts in my head that I just wanted to bring out. Let me know down in the comments. First of all, what kind of true artisanal brands do you know? How are they doing this? And what do you think as a consumer, right? Do you care about the level of craftsmanship? Do you see the details? Do you look at edges? Or you just want a dope product for a good price? Anyway, guys, that's been it for this week. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, subscribe, all that, and follow me on the gram. Would appreciate that. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next one. Cheers.